Tuesday, July 16, 2019, Brooklyn City Board of Education regular meeting. Mr. Hoskin, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Neal?
Here.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Here.
Mr. Singer?
Here.
Mr. Hennings? Here. Mr. Owen?
Here.
We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody. Next will be comments from visitors. In order for the board to fulfill its obligation to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient fashion, a maximum of 30 minutes of public participation
Spit it out there, brother.
as it pertains to school-related topics will be permitted at each meeting. Each person wishing to address the board will approach the podium and state his or her name and address. If several people wish to speak, each person will be allotted 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. During that period, no person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have had an opportunity to do so. The period of public participation may be extended by a vote of the majority of the board. Anybody? We'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Glykoff.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. I have a brief report this evening. As you'll see on the agenda tonight, we have a first reading of some policies. There's about 7 policies, and so I thought probably the easiest way to do this, to kind of give you an overview, is just kind of provide it here, even though I gave it to you in the board backup. These are all revisions of policies. So in the recommended, I talked with Neola in the spring. We're kind of going forth with this, but I needed to kind of get this, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to do so. Let me go through them one by one. They're pretty generic and bland here. This one, in terms of school choice options, really here, this is more kind of just background. As we remember, this is kind of the transition from No Child Left Behind to ESSA. So you're going to notice that the federal law is now reflected within this. So that's really the changes that I shared with you in this particular policy. These 2 policies speak of removal, suspension, expulsion, emergency removal of students. House Bill 318 around the first of the year changed some of the law, and then subsequently policies. And so this is our revision of that. Reflects a lot of the discipline of students from pre-K to 3, as there was a phase-in issue with there, kind of putting some restrictions for school districts in terms of what they could actually suspend and expel students for in those grades. And so the new policies reflect that. There's also in there some grading allowances as well, which are state law. You know, in the past there was the fact that somebody was suspended, they got zeros. And so, you know, really what we're trying to do is trying to avoid, we're not trying to penalize, it's almost like a double jeopardy per se. And so I think that the state law is precluding that. And so that's essentially what the revisions were in those 2 policies. Procurement, meaning, you know, how you're using federal grants and funds. This policy revision is actually prompted by Neola from when there were audits of several districts in terms of it. And they saw that regarding small and minority businesses and women's business enterprises, you're going to notice that within the policy now there is that actual verbiage, and that's speaking of those particular groups. So that's why the policies were needing to be revised. Crowdfunding. This is actually a revision. We did put a new crowdfunding policy in place, I think a couple years ago, as it became more and more prevalent. Again, crowdfunding, just so you know, folks realize, it's kind of a new manner in which to, you know, raise funds. You go out and you enlist other people, probably a lot of people that you don't know, to invest in your particular, you know, venture, if you will. And then it's becoming more and more popular even with schools. So, you know, one of the ones that you'll find that school districts or teachers or entities around education might use is GoFundMe. So what we are doing, just so you know, just to give some background in this, crowdfunding we're handling just like any other fundraiser. We want to be very purposeful with that. We don't want to have multiple crowdfundings going on at the same time. But what this policy with the revisions that they were asking for is what they were trying to do was address the importance of privacy protections and safeguards with students. So if you think about it, it's an important piece of it. Because when you're crowdfunding, you're usually enlisting online. Sometimes teachers, may want to include a picture in order to try to encourage folks to invest in their particular venture or their classroom. Okay, but think about what they've just done. They put a picture of a student onto a public place. And so what they have to be mindful of now is privacy protections with our students. So it's an important piece with that. And also just the fiscal safeguards. Fiscal safeguards in regards to how those monies are coming in, how are they being brought, and then also when those items are purchased or when they're brought in, remembering that those are items that are owned by the school district as opposed to the individual teacher themselves. And our teachers have been versed in that. We've shared that with them, but it's always an important piece to continue to reiterate with them. But so that's why that revision is there in this particular update. Web accessibility, content, app services. Really, the name also was revised. As technology becomes more and more prevalent, and they're trying to include everything that we have technology-wise, they can't keep up with it. So really, this is what they're doing it. Now, this is specific to our website. And so one of the things with Office of Civil Rights requirements, and this has been kind of a recurring piece, school websites have to be ADA accessible. And you'll notice on the front of our website, it'll show particular things like, do you want it in larger print? You want this? There has been folks who have gone and kind of trolled websites for the purposes of seeing which ones are not being compliant to this. So this has become a recurring theme. We've been addressing this probably over the last year or so, but again, the policy needs to also reflect that as well. And then food service. Again, this one is obviously one of our own policies, but it has to be revised. And this one also has been raised by the USDA as they've kind of reviewed different policies of different school districts. Well, this one comes to, as we are a school district, because of, free and reduced lunch, we get USDA, we get reimbursable meals. So what about that instance when, a student comes forward and says, hey, I've got some dietary restrictions that aren't necessarily what the school lunch has provided. So they talk about what are appropriate substitutions for that reimbursable meal. And so what this policy does is puts kind of some parameters around how does that happen. And so what they say is that an appropriate team must come together, and they name who should be on that team. Principal, school nurse, parent, food service supervisor. They come and comprise that team. And they say, okay, what's the particular dietary need? What can we provide this particular student? Seeing that we receive money from the federal government for reimbursable meals. So this actually is reflected by law that we've got to do this to make sure that we have this substitution policy in place if in fact that comes up. So that's kind of the summary of the particular policies. So again, there's a few of them, but they all have kind of different nuances really based on federal and state law that's come into play. Questions on those? So what will occur is we'll do a first reading tonight, and I'll kind of use this as kind of the
Right.
overview of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll, at our next board meeting, which will be next week, we'll do an approval of that, which will put the policies into play.
Correct.
One just last other note for my superintendent's report. I've talked a lot about the biennium budget. I've shared it in my last update that June 30th came and went, and they didn't approve a budget. They had an extension to June 17th or July 17th, so we're waiting. And what I just heard just in the last few hours is that the conference committees really that are getting together between the House and the Senate are apparently meeting at 4 this afternoon. So it'll be interesting. We should have something, unless they give us an extension, which that very well could happen as well, on something about the biennium budget. So hopefully I'll have something to you on what that might look like at least in school funding, by Friday. So that concludes my report for
You
tonight.
got it. We're on to Mr. Hoskin.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Wanted to let you know a few things. Look, we closed the fiscal year Tuesday morning, July 9th, so not too bad considering there was a holiday in there, and we were really concentrating our efforts on getting that payroll in place so that we could make that conversion. We received our first advance on our taxes for fiscal year 20, and the general fund received $2.535 million, $2,535,000, and the bond fund received $321,000, the first advance. We received the Medicaid reimbursement for the 16-17 school year. What they have been doing for the last 5 or 6 years is going back and reviewing charges that should have been reimbursed but had not been. And so the 16-17 school year, we received $108,992.25. Last year was about $126,000, but it should be less as we go along because more should be reported as it's occurring
Right.
rather than going back. We successfully ran a payroll for July 12th, the new system, on Friday. We sent a pre-note to the bank. Pre-note to the bank means that it will check to make sure that all the
Council.
direct deposit accounts are correct. And if it doesn't, then we'll get it back and we can make a correction, because they're entered by hand. We wanna make sure that all those things are right before we actually commit to sending a payroll.
Right.
The thing we don't wanna have is people who didn't get a deposit because there's a number wrong. So we're working on that. We're waiting for a response from the bank on that. That may not come until Monday next week. So we have the payroll on the 26th, which is a week from Friday, and still waiting on some information from Connect in order to make this switch over. And if we don't get the information from Connect, then we're going to have to do one more week with one more pay with paychecks, and then go forward in August with the pays. But I was very pleased that it came out the way it did. It took some extra time to make sure that every deduction and every pay and every line was correct, and I think I ran 40 different reports before I finally got it to work out, but I did that and got that done on Friday afternoon. The levy paperwork has been filed with the county Board of Elections. I have a sample ballot back from them. They have one thing to fix on it, and then it's ready to go. So the deadline for that to be filed is August.
That's our renewal, correct?
That's our renewal. So that's all in place. We won't have to worry about that one, at least the language and getting it on the ballot. And that's the end of my report.
Okay. We're gonna go on to committee and board reports. We're gonna start with Mr. Bob Hennings.
Thanks, Mr. President. I don't have a whole lot to say today, shocking.
Good. I say good.
Other than, I think everybody's gonna be excited about band camp starting, marching band starting again, so that's so open up your ears and stop where they're playing. I know it's
Start tonight.
pre-band camp today, so I know they're jumping for joy. The kids are biting at the wood to get out there, so good for them. Most of the fall sports will be starting here in the next couple of weeks, so don't forget to make your kids lunch and start making them drink lots of water, because once they start getting on those fields, they're not going to get a whole lot of time for water breaks. Hope everybody had a good time over the 4th. I know there's a lot of good fireworks on Winter Lane. And I still got all my fingers, and so we're good. And that's about all I got
He's
to say.
missing a toe.
I got all my fingers.
All right, we're gonna go on to Mrs. Barcheck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope everyone's enjoying their summer break. As we all enjoy our summer break, the work here at the school is in full force. Deep cleaning and repairs are being done. Thank you to Miss Sandy Neal and all the staff who are working so hard to get our buildings ready for our students to start another productive year in the fall. If you've recently moved to the Brooklyn or your child will be 5 by the end of September, please register them as early as possible for kindergarten and for if you have just moved to the city, any grade, please as soon as possible because it does help with class sizes and planning. It does make a big difference. So I just always like to remind people of that. It's like my public service announcement. My committee updates, the Domestic Abuse Commission Fund was approved by City Council, which will make it possible for the commission to collect donations, grants, and funds. These funds are needed in order for future programs to help our city and our students. I don't have a lot to say today either, so I can always be reached at 216-406-4304. You can mark it down. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, on to Mr. Oper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also have a short report tonight. It's just about Polaris. As I stated last month, the building's in its final stages of construction, and it should be done at the end of September, which is about 3 months ahead. The last part of it is the rebuilding the commons area, the administrative offices, but as the main front parking lot was being torn up and replaced with new light poles, it was discovered that all the water pipes underneath the lot that were laid originally in 1975 were laid just in the ground and not in gravel. So the pipes have been deteriorating, and so all the trenches had to be redug with gravel this time and new pipes. Even with that, the project is still on time and under budget, but just a little bit of hit to the contingency funds. And I could be reached at 216-485-8195, and that's all I have.
Thank you. On to Mr. Singer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The only thing I have to report is I just want to extend a thank you and a kudos to the city of Brooklyn for paving the 400 feet over at Hurricane Alley. It's certainly very helpful, especially if you utilize the library services there. And it puts a small dent in the rest of Hurricane Alley when people go up and down that the driveway there. So again, thanks to the mayor and her crew, and they did a nice job of paving Hurricane Alley up to the library. End of report.
Gotcha. All right. Mine's gonna be short too. Technology, there's technology going on, phones, computers. During the summer, a lot of cleaning, so that's the end of my report as well. So we're gonna move on to approval of minutes and financial statements. Our reader tonight is Mr. Robert Hennings.
Thank you. Be resolved that the minutes of the June 26, 2019 Board of Education meeting be adopted and all action taken by the Board of Education at said meeting is hereby reaffirmed and approved.
Motion,
So
please.
moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions, comments? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes,
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Be resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the finance statements of receipts and expenditures for the month of June 2019, including all purchase orders paid and all then and now statements for the month of June as submitted.
Have a motion,
So
please.
moved.
Second.
second.
Questions, comments? Go ahead.
I have on there the then and now, but there weren't any until I opened the mail today and I found one, so I'll put that on in July.
Gotcha.
Or
August. All right. Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Be resolved that to the extent that it is still effective, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby rescinds resolution number 1106-272 as it relates to individual benefits following the passage of this resolution. The Board of Education will clarify past, present, and future benefits through subsequent board action.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions, comments?
This was a resolution that was approved by the board back in 2011. Kind of gave overarching benefits. Obviously, we've kind of a one size does not fit all. So,
Titles have changed.
yeah, and I think it's now time to kind of refresh that. So, kind of moving so we can move forward with the new contracts.
Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
This one doesn't require
A reading, so I just read that.
Procedural.
Superintendent recommends the first meeting for the following revised board policy. See the attachment for details.
So you saw my PowerPoint. I will send you again this week in my update, kind of the revisions as well as the summary, if you have any questions.
Right. This is just a procedure. Next one, Bob.
Do I need to read all of,
No.
just go on to the next one?
Yep.
Alrighty.
Superintendent's recommendation, personnel.
Be resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of Brittany Hubble, Cat's preschool teacher at 27.65 per hour, up to 30 hours per week, with up to 10 additional hours per week for the 2019-2020 school year.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, Brittany's been our longtime preschool teacher, working in our typical classroom, kind of associated with cats, so that's why she's an hourly employee as opposed to salaried people like others.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Be resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of Catherine Murdoch, classroom assistant preschool, 7 hours per day, Monday through Thursday, Appendix B, Step 2, for the 2019-2020 school year, effective August 22nd, 2019.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. I'll
Second.
No, either way. Whoever gets it. Bob or Jim,
Yeah.
or me.
Also,
We all
Use a
get it
coin
together.
flip. Questions, comments?
Mrs. Murdoch is classroom assistant preschool class. She replaces Megan Angelo. If you remember, she resigned at, I think, our June meeting.
Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Roper?
yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Be resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education approves the job description for the Secretary of Support Services.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions, comments?
As we've, Mr. Hoskin, myself, and others in central office have been working on job descriptions, we thought it was appropriate now to approve the job description prior to the employment of our new Secretary of Support Services. So, just modified as we've looked at restructuring some of the responsibilities. You know, for instance, one of the instances there is having all the kind of the food service pieces happening in that with that secretary. As right now, they're kind of scattered amongst 2 or 3 different individuals just because of job shifts. So that's where the job description kind of reconfiguration goes.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Be resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of Kelly Burns as Secretary of Support Services effective July 22nd, 2019.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah. Mrs. Burns, I should say that the process has gone over for about a month or so of looking for a new secretary for the support services. Mrs. Burns was one of a number of applicants that Mrs. Neal and Mr. Hoskin interviewed. Upon the interview process and references, she emerged as their candidate. A little bit about Mrs. Burns. She comes to us from kind of commercial property administration, currently working for K&D, but also is a proud parent of 2 Brooklyn students and a recent grad, for that matter. So it's nice to have a Brooklyn resident, but I think more importantly, she's a very qualified applicant, which we put to you today with her contract.
Just don't retire too soon. I called to get my money back, and they laughed when I said, yeah, how do I get my money back? What, do you want to retire? And I said, yeah. They laughed and said, not at this age you're retiring. What? Told me no, they wouldn't get, they were going to penalize me 20%
That's right.
if I tried to
You
retire.
take taxes out.
I'm like, what are you going to do with my money? Well, it can stay there. I'm like,
Taxation.
so don't expect on getting your money back too soon.
Taxation, pal. Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Roper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations,
To the
Kelly.
Brooklyn team.
Would you like to say anything? Would you like to say anything?
You
No,
don't have-
thank you for having confidence in me to give me this opportunity. I'm looking forward to Monday.
There you go.
Too bad Tara's gone. You couldn't have
Yeah,
hound her.
I know.
Get over here, honey. Get over here.
She's all upset. She's like, "Oh, Mom, why do you wait so long?"
Well, we'll be ready for Monday. We have a stack of things to go
There's
over.
plenty of
so-
stuff to do.
Monday, why, tomorrow? What are you waiting till Monday for? Or better
Sorry,
yet, send
I
it to
got
her
this
office
plan
now.
for
She's got a big party on
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah.
so- Or we'd have her here tomorrow.
All right, congratulations. We're gonna go on, go ahead, Robert.
Be resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of Nancy Cutright for summer cleaning for 5 hours per day, effective July 9th, 2019.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Just adding to our summer cleaning support, because we said we were a little behind, but it's nice to have additional hands helping us out.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Be resolved that the minutes of the June 17th, 2019 Finance Committee meeting be accepted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Finance Committee meeting that I attended, and we had a nice conversation about the future 5-year forecast. Things are looking a lot brighter, so just wanna let you know that. Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, could you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes. Do we have any correspondence related to action information?
I do not have any.
Any other business?
Yeah.
Bob, you got a day off today.
This was easy.
Anybody else,
Break.
other business? All right. Announcement of the next regular meeting, Board of Education, Wednesday, July 24th, 2019. We are moving it,
Yeah,
treasurer, go ahead.
Can I recommend that we start at 5 PM?
Oh, that's the, yeah.
Given we're gonna do our board and central office reports.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I've thought could do it here, it might be a better setting, kind of circle around the table, cause I know folks wanna have.
Yeah, that
kinda
might be
provide-
crowded there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
we'll
media
make that,
center, 5 PM,
yes.
that sound
Yes.
good?
What's the
Week
date?
from,
What-
week from Wednesday?
Week from tomorrow.
It should be in your
Little warm
phone
in here.
already.
It should be.
With all them people in
But you
here.
never
will.
know.
I will make the
Aye.
public announcement of the change of date
All right,
and.
we're gonna make it
location.
5 PM,
Yeah,
5 PM,
it.
next
Yeah,
Wednesday, the 24th.
Is that open? Is that an open meeting?
That's an
for
open
the
meeting.
residents to come in?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So time and location will be changed.
Yep. Just in the same building around the corner.
A week from Wednesday, right?
All right, everybody adjusted, week from Wednesday? Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education enter an executive session for the preparing for conducting and reviewing negotiation or bargaining sessions with employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment pursuant to RC 121.22G4. Motion, please.
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes,
Time is 6:29.
Good job, Bob.
6:29.
Guess in, guess out.
We will know, the board will not do any more business after executive session.